Good day and God bless you. Welcome to the Bible reading in chronological order. Just such a privilege to have you with us today, and we thank the Lord that we can share in this privilege of going through His Word together. Today we're busy in the first book of the Kings and the second book of the Chronicles, and we're just going to be doing two chapters today. Chapter 7 of the first book of Kings and chapter 4 of the second book of Chronicles. We'll get straight into it by looking at 1 Kings chapter 7, and we see that the details of the building of Solomon's house, the house of Lebanon, is given. Now, strangely, we see that it took 13 years to build his own house, but only 7 years to build a temple. But please do not think that this is because he gave more care to his own house, as Solomon took immense care and employed so many laborers for the building of the temple. But also those numbers are very significant in what they represent. You have the number 7, which has a specific meaning, namely completion. But then you have the number 13, which also represents something very interesting, and especially interesting in the light of this. And I'm not going to give you the answer there, but those that are interested in this type of study, in the study of numbers, please just go and check it out, what that number 13 actually represents. And it'll actually blow your mind when you realize how significant this is, that it took him this long to build his own house, but yet it took 7 years to build the temple of the Lord. And then we also see then that Solomon commissions a house to be built for Pharaoh's daughter, which was extremely costly and precious. And then it goes, now after looking at the Solomon's house and the house of Pharaoh's daughter, it goes back to the building of the temple, and you see that Hiram, an artisan, not the king of Tyre now, this is a different Hiram, was contracted to work in the temple and to craft and to build amazing detail within the temple. Now there's one thing that I really want to just look at quickly, and that's the two columns that they had outside, the pillars that they had outside. And these pillars were given names. The one was Yachin and the one was Boaz. Now, it seems strange to us that they would name the pillars outside the door of the temple, but yet these names actually have very specific meanings. The meaning of the name Yachin means by his counsel, or God establishes. And then the name of Boaz is in him is strength. So in God is strength. And that's so beautiful when you look at it, that the two columns that you had to walk through to get into the temple was by the counsel of the Lord and by the strength of the Lord. And that's just so amazing when you look at it in that light. So please don't just take it as insignificant detail. There was nothing insignificant ever in the Word of God. And there is nothing that is there by chance. Everything is there by perfect ordination of the Lord. Then we get to 2 Chronicles chapter 4. And we're going to be dealing with the temple now. We know we're following on from 2 Chronicles 3, where it was talking about the building of the temple. And we just continue in this. And we are told of the altar of brass and the molten sea. Now please look at the detail of the 12 oxen holding up the molten sea. There's 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. Now it's not facing northwest, it's not facing northeast, it is facing north. And we know the detail when it comes to the rules that were given to the Israelites. When it says north, it means north. And so the 3 oxen were facing one way, the 3 oxen were facing the other way. And when you look at it, and I've highlighted it here in the drawings, I hope you can see it, but actually it forms a cross, the same as the children of Israel in the wilderness when they were setting up camps. They had 3 tribes in each direction, namely north, south, east, and west. And so when you look at it in this light, it's the same, and it forms a cross. Now, I want to just say one thing here that actually blew my mind, is that the sea was there for the priests to wash themselves in. And when we look at it in terms of the New Testament, it is the church that is now a royal priesthood, and they are washed by the blood of the Lamb, that was sacrificed on Calvary's cross. So we are washed by that cross. This laver sat on top of this cross, if I can say it that way. And our sacrifice, our atonement, the washing of our sins came by the way of the cross. Then we are also given details of the 10 lavers, the candlesticks, and the tables. We are given a list of the vessels and the instruments of gold and all the work that Hiram the artisan made. And that's how the chapter closes out. I'm going to leave it there then. I pray that the Lord would bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May He give you peace. God bless you as you enjoy the reading of the Word today.
Chapter 7. But Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. And he built also the house of the forest of Lebanon. The length thereof was 100 cubits, and the breadth thereof 50 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits, upon 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams upon the pillars. And it was covered with cedar above upon the beams that lay on 45 pillars, 15 in a row. And there were windows in 3 rows, and light was against light in 3 ranks. And all the doors and posts were square with the windows, and light was against light in 3 ranks. And he made a porch of pillars. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth thereof 30 cubits. And the porch was before them, and the other pillars and the thick beam were before them. Then he made a porch for the throne where he might judge, even the porch of judgment, and it was covered with cedar from one side of the floor to the other. And his house where he dwelt had another court within the porch, which was of the like work. Solomon made also an house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken to wife, like unto this porch. All these were of costly stones, according to the measures of hewed stones, sawed with saws, within and without, even from the foundation unto the coping, and so on the outside toward the great court. And the foundation was of costly stones, even great stones, stones of 10 cubits, and stones of 8 cubits. And above were costly stones, after the measures of hewed stones, and cedars. And the great court round about was with 3 rows of hewed stones, and a row of cedar beams, both for the inner court of the house of the Lord, and for the porch of the house. And King Solomon sent and fetched Hiram out of Tyre. He was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding and cunning to work all works in brass. And he came to King Solomon, and wrought all his work. For he cast 2 pillars of brass of 18 cubits high apiece, and a line of 12 cubits did compass either of them about. And he made 2 chapiters of molten brass to set upon the tops of the pillars. The height of the one chapiter was 5 cubits, and the height of the other chapiter was 5 cubits. And nets of checker work, and wreaths of chain work, for the chapiters which were upon the top of the pillars, 7 for the one chapiter, and 7 for the other chapiter. And he made the pillars, and 2 rows round about upon the one network, to cover the chapiters that were upon the top with pomegranates. And so did he for the other chapiter. And the chapiters that were upon the top of the pillars were of lily work in the porch, 4 cubits. And the chapiters upon the 2 pillars had pomegranates also above, over against the belly which was by the network. And the pomegranates were 200 in rows round about upon the other chapiter. And he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar, and called the name thereof Jachin. And he set up the left pillar, and called the name thereof Boaz. And upon the top of the pillars was lily work. So was the work of the pillars finished. And he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from the one brim to the other. It was round all about, and his height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under the brim of it round about there were knops compassing it, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. The knops were cast in 2 rows when it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And it was an handbreadth thick, and the brim thereof was wrought like the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies. It contained 2,000 baths. And he made 10 bases of brass. 4 cubits was the length of one base, and 4 cubits the breadth thereof, and 3 cubits the height of it. And the work of the bases was on this manner. They had borders, and the borders were between the ledges. And on the borders that were between the ledges were lions, oxen, and cherubims. And upon the ledges there was a base above. And beneath the lions and oxen were certain additions made of thin work. And every base had 4 brazen wheels and plates of brass, and the 4 corners thereof had undersetters. Under the laver were undersetters molten at the side of every addition. And the mouth of it within the chapiter and above was a cubit, but the mouth thereof was round after the work of the base, a cubit and an half. And also upon the mouth of it were gravings with their borders, 4 square, not round. And under the borders were 4 wheels, and the axle-trees of the wheels were joined to the base, and the height of a wheel was a cubit and half a cubit. And the work of the wheels was like the work of a chariot wheel. Their axle-trees and their naves and their felloes and their spokes were all molten. And there were 4 undersetters to the 4 corners of one base, and the undersetters were of the very base itself. And in the top of the base was there a round compass of half a cubit high, and on the top of the base the ledges thereof and the borders thereof were of the same. For on the plates of the ledges thereof and on the borders thereof he graved cherubims, lions, and palm trees, according to the proportion of every one, and additions round about. After this manner he made the 10 bases. All of them had 1 casting, 1 measure, and 1 size. Then made he 10 lavers of brass. 1 laver contained 40 baths, and every laver was 4 cubits, and upon every one of the 10 bases 1 laver. And he put 5 bases on the right side of the house, and 5 on the left side of the house. And he set the sea on the right side of the house, eastward over against the south. And Hiram made the lavers and the shovels and the basins. So Hiram made an end of doing all the work that he made King Solomon for the house of the Lord. The 2 pillars, and the 2 bowls of the chapiters that were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowls of the chapiters which were upon the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, even 2 rows of pomegranates for 1 network, to cover the 2 bowls of the chapiters that were upon the pillars, and the 10 bases and 10 lavers on the bases, and 1 sea, and 12 oxen under the sea, and the pots, and the shovels, and the basins. And all these vessels which Hiram made to King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of bright brass. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them, in the clay ground between Succoth and Zothan. And Solomon left all the vessels unweighed, because they were exceeding many. Neither was the weight of the brass found out. And Solomon made all the vessels that pertained unto the house of the Lord, the altar of gold, and the table of gold whereupon the showbread was, and the candlesticks of pure gold, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left, before the oracle, with the flowers and the lamps and the tongs of gold, and the bowls, and the snuffers, and the basins, and the spoons, and the censers of pure gold, and the hinges of gold, both for the doors of the inner house, the most holy place, and for the doors of the house, to wit, of the temple. So was ended all the work that King Solomon made for the house of the Lord. And Solomon brought in the things which David his father had dedicated. Even the silver and the gold and the vessels did he put among the treasures of the house of the Lord. Chapter 4. Moreover he made an altar of brass, 20 cubits the length thereof, and 20 cubits the breadth thereof, and 10 cubits the height thereof. Also he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits the height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under it was the similitude of oxen, which did compass it round about, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And the thickness of it was an handbreadth, and the brim of it like the work of the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies. And it received and held 3,000 baths. He made also 10 lavers, and put 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left, to wash in them. Such things as they offered for the burnt offering they washed in them, but the sea was for the priests to wash in. And he made 10 candlesticks of gold according to their form, and set them in the temple, 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left. He made also 10 tables, and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left. And he made 100 basins of gold. Furthermore, he made the court of the priests, and the great court, and doors for the court, and overlaid the doors of them with brass. And he set the sea on the right side of the east end, over against the south. And Huram made the pots and the shovels and the basins. And Huram finished the work that he was to make for King Solomon for the house of God, to wit, the 2 pillars, and the pommels and the chapiters which were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 wreaths to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were on the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates on the 2 wreaths, 2 rows of pomegranates on each wreath, to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were upon the pillars. He made also bases, and lavers made he upon the bases, 1 sea, and 12 oxen under it. The pots also, and the shovels, and the flesh hooks, and all their instruments did Huram his father make to King Solomon for the house of the Lord, of bright brass. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them, in the clay ground between Succoth and Zeredatha. Thus Solomon made all these vessels in great abundance, for the weight of the brass could not be found out. And Solomon made all the vessels that were for the house of God, the golden altar also, and the tables whereon the showbread was set. Moreover, the candlesticks with their lamps, that they should burn after the manner before the oracle, of pure gold. And the flowers, and the lamps, and the tongs made he of gold, and that perfect gold. And the snuffers, and the basins, and the spoons, and the censers of pure gold. And the entry of the house, the inner doors thereof for the most holy place, and the doors of the house of the temple, were of gold.